And then this other guy, every day in the drive-through, he would call me every day, girl. He was always at Panera Bread getting that damn oatmeal with a bunch of sugar. And I would tell him, why don't you just make oatmeal at home? Why do you? And then he would get a soda too. And I'm like, this man ain't for me because I'm gonna have to take care of his unhealthy ass in about 10 years. And I mean, when I tell you it dried up the coochie, his habits dried up the coochie. And I said, this will never work for me.
Hey everyone, welcome to Unapologetically 50 Plus. My name is Angela. So today we are going to be talking about emotional intimacy after 50, building deeper connections. We're going to discover a few secrets to nurturing deeper, more meaningful connections after 50 with my guest V from V Mindful. But before I bring her on, I have one huge favor to ask. If you find any value or enjoy the content, please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification, and let YouTube know you want more of this content. It's free and you are helping us build this community. So thank you. We truly appreciate your support. All right, let's bring on my guest and let's get this conversation started. Hello, Miss V. How are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So before we get started, tell folks a little bit about you if they don't already know who you are. If you don't know, y'all need to start paying attention and watching this lady. So give us a little.
I appreciate that. All right. Sure. So I go by V Mindful. That's the name of my business. So I have a channel on YouTube, as well as I'm not that active on Instagram. I'm not going to lie, but I have retitled myself a love and intimacy coach. You know, I was just plain V Mindful relationship coach, but I find that the topics that are resonating more with people are the intimacy part, and I do believe that's a major factor in our relationship. I do believe that it's something that we need to focus on if we're going to have healthy and happy and successful relationships. And that's inclusive of sex, right? Just because we're older doesn't mean that we just stop, like my coochie just stopped working. Like I still want to have a healthy sex life. And my audience is typically for 50 and over, mature folks for 45 and over, typically people who are starting over in life, like divorce, or hey, they've just been in a long-term relationship for many years. But come on over to Be Mindful, check out my content, and again, love and intimacy coach. Be mindful.
So what made you focus on 50 and older?
Because that's my age range. Well, here's the thing. I find, okay, so I have adult children. My oldest son is almost 30. And my youngest son is actually going to college. And I find that their dating issues are not the same as mine, right? Their relationships are not the same as mine. I find that not that I can't relate to their youngness, but it seems like they have different dating struggles than somebody who is 45 and up. So therefore, I was like, you know what? I don't have that personal experience of dating today if you're 18, 19, 20, 25. And then I feel like we come with a different set of challenges as we get older. You know, we're dealing with ED, we're dealing with menopause, we're dealing with and it is different if you are doing a blended family versus when the kids are 2 and 3 years old versus when the kids are 25 and 26 years old, right? Dating over, online, when I say dating over, I mean like dating after divorce or even after your partner has passed away, because there are some people, yes, they're widows and they're 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? So that's the real thing. And the other challenges of like online dating. Girl, when I was 20, we had no online dating, you know, and navigating that space. And that's why I say, you know what, I'm just going to focus on the mature folks, because these people who are 20, 25 years old, they doing some different stuff.
Even different than when we were that age, because it's a whole different beast. And I hear some of my friends who are in my age range, our age range, because I'm 58, and they're trying to go out there and date online, and I'm like, I'm watching them like, this looks like a hot mess. And they're saying even the men out there are still playing these games. And these are older gentlemen. They're not young guys, but trying to date in this time frame, in this technological age,
Mm-hmm.
it just seems, I'm just gonna say it seems scary to me. But so I'm glad I'm not out there. So because I
Girl,
don't
you should be thankful for that. I'm telling you right now, you better go and give your husband a big old kiss. 'Cause, it, on one side, it's because there are women and men who
Mhm.
have stayed in marriages who are completely unhappy. So that's why I'm like, staying married or saying that I've been married for 25, 35 years isn't necessarily always a badge of honor, right? There's a lot of forgiveness that goes into that marriage in order for them to last that long. My parents have been married 52 years. And I can sit here and tell you, as a child out of their union, I know there has been a lot of forgiveness. They have a great relationship now. They're great friends, and they spend a lot of time with each other. But lasting that long comes with a lot of conversation, comes with a lot of "I'm sorry, what can I do better?" But then there are people who say, you know what, them kids are grown, they out the house. It's time for me to do me. I don't want that sorry sack of balls no more. So I'm gonna go ahead and get me somebody new because I done dealt with so much crap for so many years that they are back on the dating scene. And for them, it's freeing because they've been held down for so long. They've been unhappy for so long. And they're excited about, going out here, having their own space, not catering or considering anybody else. So for those people, I would say they're more optimistic about dating and they probably will have a more successful time dating.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting
Mm-hmm.
way of looking at it. Oh, okay. So let me ask you this, since we're talking about the emotional intimacy, and I'm glad you said that's what you're focusing on, because I think a lot of people don't realize that yeah, you can, like you were just saying, you can be in a marriage or a long-term relationship, but if there's no emotional connection or
Mm-hmm.
intimate connection, then you might as well just have a roommate. So
Mm.
if you could design a relationship fitness test, what key exercises would it include to ensure a relationship is healthy and strong?
I was just telling my girlfriend this, like, yeah, so I was married. I'm not married anymore. I was married for about 12 years. And back then, because I got married in my 20s, and back then I didn't know anything about narcissism. Like I didn't know what it was. I knew that something. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like I didn't know that what I was dealing with was emotional abuse. Right. And I have a very strong demeanor, strong personality. My parents have raised me to be probably too independent. And, then I had to deal with the whole masculine and feminine. My mom raised me because she's Chinese and she came to this country as an immigrant with my father, marrying my father. My mom always said, have your own, go to school, it's Chinese, get that education, right? That's the helicopter mom.
Yeah.
And then my dad, don't let no man take advantage of you because he had, two daughters. And my sister passed, but my parents raised two daughters, and so my father was big on don't let blah blah blah. So it created in me a whole lot of issues. But I could tell you things that I learned from my previous relationships, my marriage, or I guess you could call it fitness test, but it's based off of from what I'm seeing out here in the dating world, what I'm seeing also from my experiences, from my clients' experiences. If I could design something, y'all, I would tell you, learn red flags. The faster you can learn them, the better you'll be. And here's a simple one, right? And this is dealing with either narcissism or, let's say, that emotional immaturity. It's a lot of people out here who are very emotionally immature. But and this is simple. Let's say y'all going on the first date, and the first date, maybe the communication got twisted, right? You show up on time. As a woman, you show up on time. He's late, or vice versa. I don't care. I don't nitpick because women be effing up, guys be effing up, right? Whoever, right? Somebody shows up on time and is doing the right thing. The other person, says, well, take it, that I'm not there, and then when they get there, they're like, well, you gave me the wrong address. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Whether they say it in anger or jest, I don't give a damn how they say it. But let me tell you, if they say it to where it's not like, I apologize. I must have gotten the messages wrong. That is my fault. Blah, blah, blah. If they don't say it like that, if they just say, what, you gave me the wrong information, blah, 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 run. I'm telling you, stuff like that. Like that is somebody who has a very low emotional maturity. Because what's going to happen is that's going to turn into a constant blame game in your relationship. No accountability. Yep. And it could come out as simple as that on a date, right? Communication is huge, and it's the number one reason why relationships fail. If you find that you're early on in dating and your communication is off, again, the lack of accountability, the defensiveness, things like that, where they just don't want to accept anything, any responsibility on them. Red flags, y'all. I'm telling you, you're not going to outlove any of those red flags, because that is something that they have to work on themselves, and it's best to just bounce.
Yeah. My husband and I, we have we don't do it as much, but we have our podcast also, and it's about the relationship primarily for while you're in your marriage, because again, we've been dating in so many 30 years, so I really couldn't, we really can't talk about the dating scene, but we always say that communication is one of the pillars to a healthy relationship. Because if you can't communicate effectively or honestly, authentically, you're going to have problems. And all of us have an area. I mean, I have an area that it's hard for me to talk to him about. So I'm like, I need some therapy. So I'm going to therapy on how to communicate in these particular areas where I shut down. So you're right, that communication is key. Otherwise, and accountability, all the things you just mentioned, you have to have that emotional maturity in order to communicate effectively.
Yep.
So
learn the hard way, girl. I'm telling you, like, because I read a lot of books. Like, if you could see around me, I'm constantly educating myself. I'm in another certification program as well, because I like to constantly learn, like, people and the psychology of people. Being in a leadership role in corporate America for a long time, been in corporate America for 30 years now. Right, and dealing with different personalities. When you're a leader at work, it's like a daycare, girl. It's like a mommy at home and a mommy at work, right? You still have multiple personalities. So I'm constantly learning and educating myself. I didn't even know I just knew that something like, I learned a lot about narcissism, but that emotional maturity or immaturity, that is, it looks like narcissism, but it's not.
Oh, okay. I'll have to. I didn't know that. I really didn't know much about narcissism until my husband started talking about it. He had a friend who dealt with. She seemed to pick the narcissistic men, and so that's how I learned about it. But and started really kind of saying, "Oh, okay, what is narcissism?" But I didn't realize that emotional maturity doesn't necessarily mean narcissism.
Yeah, it doesn't. Narcissism is something that, and I'm a preface this with, be mindful, is not a doctor. This is me reading. Girl, if you can see all these books around me. And I too work with a coach every week. I've had a coach for, I guess, 5-6 years now.
Okay.
But narcissism, and this is also me interviewing and working with people who work with narcissists. Narcissists, you can't really revert one. Right, you're a narcissist. You're a narcissist, right? It's and actually one of my clients has been mentally impacted by having a narcissistic parent, right? And they will being raised by a narcissistic parent will absolutely mentally impact you. But emotional immaturity is something you can work on. So that's the good news. Like, you can, a lot of times you become emotionally immature also because you saw how your parents communicated, right? It doesn't mean that you're narcissistic, but if you're narcissistic, you might display signs of emotional immaturity, but a lot more than that, not just that. But if you are just coming across as emotionally immature, it doesn't make you a narcissist. Absolutely not. It just means there's something you got to work on, and you can work on it.
Okay. Okay. Because, yes, I was raised by a narcissistic father. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
It
once
can
I
be
started,
mentally damaging.
right. Once I started learning what narcissism was, I was like, oh, okay. I know about one of those. I had one of those in my life. So, how might the concept of relationship minimalism enhance our love life as we age?
I think, okay, so if you look at some of my content, I might talk about, and I may make a jest about it, but I ain't joking. I think if you just focus on what truly matters to you in your relationship, like, okay, so when I first start working with a client, they'll tell me about all their dating history, even their current. Some of them are in relationships, right? And they'll say all of these things, and I'll take a step back. I'll be like, if you could design your ideal relationship, I mean, like, what does that even look like to you? Because I don't think a lot of people even know that. Like, they think they know what they want because society is telling you that you should have this, you should have that. But it's like, okay, but what's important to you? Maybe all that BS isn't important, right? And so I would tell anybody, like, remove the fluff and focus on what do you truly want. Like, I see a lot of women, well, he must be 6'2", he must be 6'4", he must have all this. Girl, it be dark skinned, bald headed, and bearded. I'm like, it's probably like 2% of men like that. Like, girl, you are severely limiting your options when you start adding that extra fluff in there. Men too. Oh, she got to have a fat ass. I'm gonna say right now, I'm Chinese and black, and I ain't get blessed with no fat ass. My ass is like, my little I have a Chinese mother, okay. And when I got married, I was like, you saw them Chinese people at the wedding. I mean, what kind of ass was you thinking I was packaged with? And my ex-husband was like, oh, but you ain't frying no chicken. I'm like, I could stir fry. Okay, you ain't see all them Chinese people at that damn wedding. But anyways, it's like you gotta focus on what's important to you. How does that person make you feel? Like, do you enjoy spending time with this person? Do y'all have a friendship? Right? Focus on that and get rid of all that extra BS because it's going to weigh you down. You will not have the options that you think. A lot of times, girls, and I see this more so in men. Okay, I do see this now. Men, hear me clearly. Some of y'all think y'all finer than you are. Some of y'all think y'all are the cream of the crop, and it's like,
Yes.
you better look at what you attracting. Like, if you're not attracting, if you ain't attracted Halle Berry's and J Lo's and everything else, maybe you not at the level that you think you are. Date who's interested in you. Like, look around you. As beautiful as I may think I am, if I got all these, booger bears coming to me, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not as hot as I think I am. Maybe I need to date on my level, or I need to focus on how I'm presenting myself because I'm only attracting what I am, not what I want. So if you find that you're attracting this level of folks, then you need to level up yourself.
And I think especially as we get older, we need to start chopping down those lists because we are not in our prime anymore. We come with a lot of baggage. Some of us come with a baggage. If you've been out there dating and you keep, getting ghosted or whatever, you're going to have that baggage. So you do need to kind of, like I said, minimalize what you are expecting out of a potential, partner. And do you find that men have a higher self-esteem than women in your
higher self-esteem?
meaning? Meaning like, oh yeah, I can, like you were just saying, I'm a 10 and I can't be dealing with no, sixes or sevens.
You know what it is? Men are more visual creatures.
Okay.
And they like what they like, and I'm not going to knock any of them.
Visual, they looking in the mirror, looking at themselves.
Girl,
I'm
they get blind. They get blind. It's like, your belly sticks out well beyond the tips of your shoes, right? You're going to have a woman lift up the belly just to find your stuff. And it's like, let's be realistic. Like, me personally, I go to the gym all the time, right? And if you're like we were saying before you started recording, I ain't up in there killing it like Beyonce would be in the gym. Y'all, I'm up in there just moving my body. You know, I'm up in there using a not free water because I pay for that daggone water. My gym is expensive. I go to the gym, take a shower. You know, I've used their towels, I use their soap, their lotion, all that stuff. You know why? Because I pay for it, right? So I make sure I go to the gym, I go to yoga, you know, and not the hard yoga, girl. Not the hard yoga. I'm going to the stretching yoga where we hold a position for 5 minutes, and it, you know, I'm not doing nothing crazy, but I'm not going to sit here and ask for a man, you know, to be in the most tip top shape, and then I never step a foot in the gym. It's like, you know, you have to become what you're looking for. We all need to do that. So if you want somebody, you know, and it's not, I have a client and I have to, oh gosh, I have to, I have to tell him, I'll be like, what in the flying F? I have to tell him all the time. I said, you know what? It is not shallow of these women that you're meeting to want to have a man who can provide. It is not shallow for her to question your ability to provide because he's not financially at a place where he would like to be. And I keep telling him, focus on your business, right? Because everything else will work out for you. A man without a purpose is a man that you can't lead anybody if you don't even know where you're going, right? It is not shallow for a woman to want a man who has his stuff together. Stop thinking that she's a gold digger. These women are not gold diggers. We are designed and it's like embedded in us to want to have a man who can lead. You're not going to lead me to hell. So why would I follow you, right? And so if people really understood the dynamics of a man and a woman, right, I just feel like we would be in a better position, especially with that client. So I have to tell him all the time, it's not shallow. Okay, so stop thinking everybody wants your little pennies, your little $6,000 in your 401k. I had a client that only had that one time, and I was like, girl, y'all not gonna be rich. Stop fighting, you know, because I was dealing with, like, you know, going through helping people with the divorces, and I'm like, y'all spending more money fighting about and it's costing you to fight about it than the money that's actually in your 401k. Let it go. You know, so it's like, let's be realistic here, and that comes to everything: the way we look, the way we think, the way we feel about ourselves.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So in a world where virtual reality can stimulate emotional experiences, how do you see the future of mature dating evolving?
You know, I'm assuming the virtual reality is like online and that.
Yeah, the whole goggle. Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, wait, do you mean like the game?
I'm just virtual. You know, because now so many, and I don't know how many of us in our age range are really into the virtual reality, but I'm talking about even online. I'm talking about, you know, instead of having that true connection with another human, we're having that connection online through the virtual goggle. Now that's getting out of control, where you're not even interacting with a live human being, you're interacting with whatever they call them, emojis or whatever these things are called now. But how do you think how do you think that's going to impact, you know, mature dating?
Girl, I hope, you know, so one of my best friends, she uses Gemini a lot, right? And that's the Google AI tool, right? And we joke, and I'm like, okay, I think Gemini about to be your man. Cause, you know, and I feel like even at work, right, we use Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, and it's just an AI tool. I think we are relying on AI so much that it's starting to think for us. Right. And I honestly don't want to get to a point to where it's this video I saw, and it was hilarious. The guy was acting like, you know, like, you remember that movie long time ago when that gorilla, he was like, I Amy,
yes,
right? Yeah. And he did the video of it, and he was like, this is about to be us as humans, unable to think for ourselves anymore. We're going to be like that. And then AI is like, I think what you're trying to say is X, Y, Z, da, da, da. He said, it's hilarious, but I cracked up because I was like, I do think that's the future if we keep allowing AI to speak for us. Now, but let's say online dating or even meeting people, and you don't even have to, y'all, you don't even have to be on online dating to meet people way across the world, right? Because, I have the whole thing that I do on catch flights and feelings. And it's not just through online dating. If you're on TikTok, right? If you're on Instagram and you just randomly like somebody's comment or whatever, they hit you up like, that's not online dating. It's just you met them online, right? So I think the thing with meeting folks online versus in person, I always tell my clients, y'all, do not stretch that online stuff too long. I'm telling you right now, because it's not the same. I don't give a damn. Y'all talk 3-4 hours a day. You don't know how your energy is going to mesh with that person until you meet them in person. They may stink. You don't know. They may fart when they walk. Like, you honestly won't know until you meet them in person. That's why I do the whole catch flight and feelings. I'm a huge proponent of, look, do not wait months before you take a trip with this person. Now, we older, we all should be able to afford to go some damn where, okay? See, I'm not talking about 18-year-olds like my youngest son where he ain't got a pot to piss in. I'm talking about 50, 55, 60 y'all. We should all have enough money to take a weekend trip. You're going to want to do that sooner than later. Do not marry a woman or a man until you go, or especially do not move in with somebody until you go on at least a 3-night trip. That could be to the next day. I'm not saying you got to do what I've done. Like my 4th date with my partner, we went to the Serengeti, right? And we have been on 55 vacations since then. I'm not saying do what Be Mindful does. I'm saying, y'all, there are certain things you're not going to know about a person until you go somewhere that you two have never been. It could be a 4-hour road trip, but I promise you, you don't learn about people until unless it's through situations. And online, y'all, Instagram or whatever, I'm telling you, it doesn't present enough opportunities to where, or it doesn't present any to where you're going to learn about somebody.
I had a friend who she met a guy online and she kept trying to, meet him in person, and he kept putting up them roadblocks. And she, yeah, and she said, we're talking this many hours a day and blah, blah, blah. She said, but I'm not, he keeps putting up these roadblocks for me to meet him. And she says, I've FaceTimed with him. I've seen him, but there's something, she said it just feels like a red flag. So she ended up calling it off. But you're right. You can't get to know someone even through a FaceTime. You need to be in the presence of that person. And you're right. Going on a vacation, 3-day vacation, if that's all you can do, you'll really get to know who that person is. My friend, she says, I hate dealing with the PR person. She says that in the beginning of a relationship, you have that PR person. And she said, and sometimes that PR person can last for 6 months. And she said, I wish I could just skip all that and really get to know this person. But especially online, that PR person can have that same PR for a year, 2 years, and you've wasted your time. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go on vacation. That's what I was going to ask you. Flights and feelings. That's where you got that whole concept from.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and tell her to please go on vacation. Yeah, and I call it their representative. You only know their representative for the first. If they can hang on to that representative piece for 6 months, I'm telling you, that is because you have not spent time away from the regular mundane stuff. People cannot hold on to that facade of themselves too long, right? I'm telling you now, you want to learn about somebody, take a trip, because let's say you miss a flight, something like that. Like my partner, we couldn't get into Vietnam that time, and because he put the wrong date on the visa application. And the lady we were in Thailand and we were about to go into Vietnam, and she was about to close her window. And she was like, you can go, pointing to me, you can't go. And she said, you have 5 minutes, make a decision. And I was like, what do you mean he can't go? And then and she's like, the wrong date, he has the wrong date. And so we pulled to the side, and I was like, I know this ninja ain't put the wrong MF and date on. And I was just like, I thought he was more organized and all this. But you know what, girl? I did not make us think about it. I just said it is what it is, right? It is what it is. I could have left him. And I could have been like, I'm gonna see your ass in Vietnam in a couple of days. I'll just be there because we already had tours set up and everything.
Right.
But I said no. I said we just gonna stay behind and we're gonna have, we have to rearrange everything in Vietnam. I didn't make a big deal about it. Nothing. I just said it is what it is, and we're just gonna keep it moving.
Okay. See, yeah, that's that emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
What unconventional methods have you found effective for maintaining passion in long-term relationships?
I wouldn't even call them, let's say, unconventional. I would just say, I think the best thing to do to keep passion. Okay, I'm gonna still ride the travel thing. Okay, I'm gonna ride that. The thing is, you have to continue to do something in your relationship that's new for the both of you, right? It's not new for you, and he's teaching you how to do something because that's not going to ignite the curiosity. That's why they say people who travel together, they actually have a higher success rate at staying together because they're doing adventures that they haven't been to before. You should go. Do not keep going to the same damn country. Did you see that couple they stuck in Mexico in a Mexican prison right now because they disputed their what do you call it, timeshare charges from a few years ago, and it's like over $100,000. Well, I don't know why the hell they kept going to Mexico, but they're in a Mexican prison now, and I'm like, ain't no way hell my Black and Chinese ass would have been back in Mexico. All these countries in the world, yeah, why would you go? So they in prison there. Go to different places, y'all. There's so many countries in the world. Like, why would you keep going to the same? Because you're not sparking like new conversations. We've been to a lot of places. I love Namibia, love Botswana. Didn't care too much about South Africa, but Tanzania, several countries in Southeast Asia. Through the U.S., we flew through to a bunch of national parks in the U.S. Right? And it's just do something that's different for do a book club, right? That you're reading books that neither one of you have read. I don't care what the daggone book is about, but just do something that's new that's going to incite conversation. That's how you stay connected. People who do the regular mundane thing, they go to work, they come home, they watch TV, they watch Family Feud. Now I can see my parents doing that. They're 75 years old. Okay. But if you are 45, 55, right, why are you acting like you 95?
Even
so
65.
That would be my advice.
And I think we do quickly get into a routine, especially if you're doing it year after year after year, that it's hard to break that routine because then you do have to physically sit there and think. You have to reprogram your mind. And I think sometimes we just get so stuck in the same, day in and day out mundane routine that we can't or have trouble thinking about, okay, how can we make this different? How can we do something just a little different? And then on top of that, it has to be, sometimes it's going to have to be a compromise because you're not going to necessarily enjoy what your partner likes, but try it. Don't just say no. I mean, there's some things I know I've already told Pierre I'm not doing. I'm not doing no skydiving. I'm not doing no hot air balloon. I mean, I will fly anywhere. I will go anywhere. But those two things, I'm not jumping out no plane. And I want to make sure if I'm in something, it's got to be a whole bunch of steel around me because with my feet off the ground, I need steel around me. But yeah, I think you need to really be open and break that. And maybe sometimes it's fear. Do you think it's sometimes fear with us as we get older because we haven't been good getting out of our comfort zone? So you think sometimes it's just fear, like, well, no, I don't want to do that. Instead of just saying, I'm afraid to try something new, we just automatically put up, no, I don't want to do that.
I think a lot of it's fear, and we get set in our ways, and we have to fight against that, especially let's say that you're single and you want to start dating again, but you have been living on your own for several years. You are going to have a hard time sharing your space with somebody. It's important that you work on your own mindset before you get out here and start attracting somebody new. Because if you're dead set and living your life the way you want to live your life and have no compromise, right, then you're better off single, because you're going to hit a lot of resistance. You have to work on that first.
Yeah.
And so I do think a lot of that is fear, but girl, a lot of it is we getting older and we get set in our ways, and it's like it's not realistic for you to expect someone to completely fit into your life and you not fit into theirs. And stay by your damn self, okay? Because it's not fair. That's not fair.
Have you and your partner ever tried retreats? Any type of retreat together?
To go to a retreat or to throw a retreat?
To actually go to a retreat, like a retreat.
Now I did that within my marriage and not in this relationship. No, we have not. We have thought about putting retreats together, and that is something that I absolutely want to do. We're very we're focused into our health. Very we like to do natural products.
Yeah.
He actually had a natural product company, but he focuses really on his other two businesses. And we want to be able to bring folks together, mature folks. But we talk about the relationship, but we talk about how do we take care of ourselves as we age. So we want to put on retreats, but we have not gone to a retreat together. No.
Okay. Well, when you guys put those retreats on, I'll be me and my husband, because we're the same way. We don't like to focus on more natural products. Because I watched your video on what your partner takes, and how he put them all together. So I bought all the ingredients. I got the little pill thing for Pierre, and so we made some, and so I was like, okay, so we're really focused on our health too, because and that's another thing. If you don't have a partner who is as focused on their health as you are, it's going to make it really difficult to even, do things. He's not going, or she's not, whoever it is not going to have the energy. They're not going to have the drive. They're not going to have, they're just not going to have that desire to go out of their comfort zone and do things that you might want to do. And that's going to impact your relationship. So we really do have to focus on that as we get older. That should be actually that should be right behind communication in your relationship, your health. Period.
Oh yeah. I'm telling you, because I remember when I was out here dating after I got divorced, I could think of two men that, and I'm very close to my daddy, my parents, but I talk to my dad the most. And I remember telling my dad that one guy, and I did a reel about it, how we went on a date, and he was real short. He was shaped like CeeLo Green, so I call him short arms, right? Because his arms, I felt like they were like T-Rex. And but he was. I'm only 5'4". He was 5'4" too, girl. We eye to eye, okay. We butt naked. We looking in each other's eyes. And one thing that I remember, and I kept saying, Daddy, he eats too much. He just the appetizers are things that I would have never eaten, like fried pickles, and I'm like, how many appetizers do you need? And then he got a whole rack of ribs one time. He got appetizers, then he got a rack of ribs, and I'm sitting there like, okay, this dude ain't for me. He eats too much. But he's the same dude who's, he ordered dessert, and he was like, go ahead, take the dessert home. This is when my kids were younger, teenagers. And he said, take the dessert home. Girl, we sat there and kept eating. This fool ate my damn dessert. I ain't taking home. This fool ate the damn dessert. And I was like, why would he give it? Girl, so that was a no for me. And then this other guy, every day in the drive-thru, he would call me every day, girl. He was always at Panera Bread getting that damn oatmeal with a bunch of sugar. And I would tell him, why don't you just make oatmeal at home? And then he would get a soda too. During the day, he drank sodas. And I'm like, this man ain't for me, because I'm going to have to take care of his unhealthy ass in about 10 years. And when I tell you, it dried up the coochie his habits dried up the coochie. And I said, this will never work for me. Somebody who's living like that is definitely destined to get, I'm not a doctor, but you're cutting off the energy flow to your penis, right? And you probably might have more issues because you're not taking care of yourself. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be horny, and I'm gonna be fat. And I was like, this man ain't for me. So, girl, yes, you're right. You got to look at somebody's habits, because is that what you want to sign up for? And my answer was hell no.
Hell no. Yeah, you want someone who's going to go with you to the gym, or at least say, okay, encourage you. Let's go to the gym. Let's go for a walk. That's how Pierre and I are. Like, okay, we ain't got all our steps in today. Let's see, how much water have you drunk? So we keep each other accountable too.
Yeah.
When you put on a few little extra pounds, I'll be like, "Oh, baby, we gotta hit that gym, and we gotta start eating at home more." So
that's
you keep
right.
each other accountable. Definitely, definitely. So how do you help someone identify and overcome the blocks to a healthy relationship?
When I first,
yeah.
Well, I was, when I first started working with clients, it's very much so a questionnaire, right? Like even when you work with couples, you bring in a couple and you guys, you talk to the couple about, hey, what brought you here? And then you talk to the individual. You always have to talk to the individual to find out, what was your childhood like? Like what's going on in you? Now, it's always helpful if you're in a relationship to hear what's going on in a couple, because you can't really hear name one person. Because you're always going to paint yourself to be the most perfect person. Nothing's wrong with you. Psychology has proven that many times. But if I were to ask your partner some of the things that you could work on, your partner would be very forthcoming about, hey, they could be X, Y, Z. And I know it's probably not the easiest necessarily to be in a relationship with someone who's trained with identifying relationship issues, right? Because then I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna tell you what this is. I'm gonna tell you what all of this is. And I try not to do that, but I'm gonna tell you right now, girl, that is not easy to do, because I'm like, I know what this is, and we could fix it if X, Y, Z. But the first thing with trying to help somebody remove the block, they have to want to remove the block. Right. You got a lot of people let's say you're in a relationship with somebody and something's off. No matter how many times you point it out, and I don't care how you could point it out, you could sing that mess in a song, girl. I could hire violinists and they could just, babe, I really would love us. I don't care how you present it. If that person doesn't see it, they don't agree with you, you have no choice but to move on from that relationship, because it's never going to get better until there's some accountability on that person, right? For them to say, you know what, I want the relationship to work, so I'm going to do my part. If something's off because clearly my partner keeps saying, I'm not doing X, Y, Z, then you have a chance, right? But if that person is over there still playing the victim, still blaming you, then y'all, there are no blocks to remove from that person. You can only remove your own. So you have to, I would always think about your relationships. All the relationships, like we 50, okay, 50 and over, right? You done been in some damn relationships. Think of the feedback people gave you in those relationships. Think of the arguments that you've had. And if there was some commonality, that's something that you have to work on. Everybody can't have the same damn issue with you, right? There's something there, and if you keep dating the same type of person over and over and over again, it's something within you that's attracting that type of person, right? And so, we have to start with that, identifying your experiences, either as a single person or even a person in a relationship. But you have to start there in order to help them, because a lot of times people don't know the block. They just know that, damn it, I keep having the same experiences, right? Well, that's a block. It's something there. If you keep thinking that all men are out here, they only want booty, they only want sex from me, what is it about you that's attracting that all men want? Because that's not my experience.
Right.
Never been my experience that only men want. But first, I ain't got no booty. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right there, right? But so if all men, I'm like, that's not my experience, but that might be your experience. So what is it about you that makes you believe that?
And that's one thing my husband would say, when something keeps repeating, especially when we're talking about relationship, you keep picking the same type of men or women. What's the common denominator? And that's you. And another thing that what you were saying about it, we have to also, even in long-term relationships, we have to, since if we can't see it ourselves, we have to understand that our partner is seeing, I'll call it flaw. Maybe that's not the right word, but whatever that flaw is in you. But you also have to understand that if your partner is telling you these things, hopefully they're telling you to help you get better, but not to take it in a defensive manner. Like I go back to my own, having difficult communicating certain things. Pierre would tell me there's something that's going on that we're having problems communicating with this particular subject. And when I finally heard him, I said, okay, he's right. There is something that's going on with me. Let me go ahead and get some therapy so I can figure this out. And I can, move past this. And this is after being together over 30 years. And I was like, okay, there is something that I really need to work on. So we have to also be open to hear our partner tell you, hey, and especially if your partner's not trying to tell you something to hurt you. So that has to be also in the back of your mind, that I'm going to listen and I'm going to try and understand what that person is saying and not be defensive about it. And then hopefully go and fix it. Get some therapy. There's nothing wrong with therapy, whether it's coaching or a therapist or whatever. Go get some.
Please do. You're 100% right. I was telling one of my clients the other day, it's like communication. It's our body language, it's our tone, it's the words that's coming out of our mouth. But communication is also how the other person is receiving what you're saying. I feel like I'm am I perfect? No, but I do feel like I'm an excellent communicator. Like I'm not an argumentative type person. I want to, start with the positive. I want you to fully understand what I'm saying. I'm not here to blame. It's me and you against the issue, and I'm big on that. Like, let's kick the issues ASS so we can get back to loving on each other. Right. I have found though, everybody can't hear that. They don't hear it. They hear, you're attacking me. And I've been in relationships to where you have no choice but to walk away from somebody that is always it's like, I'm not attacking you. I'm attacking the problem. I want us to get better. That communication piece is up for them too. I'm so glad that you were able to go get, therapy and finally recognize and hear your partner say, it's something. And I don't know how long it took for you to, finally understand. I know you said y'all been together, girl. If it took you 30 damn years, well, goddamn. But you finally heard it, right? Without that other person hearing you, you're going to get frustrated. Right. You're going to get stressed. And studies have shown that internalizing that it causes disease. Right. It causes disease within you when you get to a point where you can't even share your feelings with your partner because they're not going to receive it. You start making yourself sick.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I'm listening to, and I don't remember the author's name, but it's called Nonviolent Communication. And it's very eye-opening because he talks about, and I'm not probably verbalizing this exactly, but basically he talks about how when we hear someone say something to us, it's not what that person is saying that triggers us necessarily. It's how we feel about that. What is that unmet need? So somebody's telling me something, my partner's telling me something, and I internalize it. I hear it a different way, but there is an unmet need. And I feel that's not being met. So I'm taking what he's saying and almost too personal because there's that unmet need. Now it's more in depth than that. And I just started listening to all his series, and it's one of those series that I'm gonna have to listen to over and over again. But when in hearing him say that, I'm like, that's true. That is so true. When I really break it down, when I hear my husband say something and I get defensive about it, it's because there's something in me, that unmet need, that is triggering how I'm feeling. But yeah, if it's called, nonviolent communication. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's worth listening to. For those who are listening, it's worth listening to. It's a little dry, but it's still something that I think could help a lot of people if they're open to listening and really hearing what he has to say.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know that whole being open, right?
It's hard.
You have a shared, and I can tell you this: like I interviewed somebody, and I can't remember what I can't. I wonder if I ever put it on my YouTube channel. I don't know, or if she went to the podcast. But when she was talking about, she had been married twice. And one marriage, she decided no, because he cheated. She wasn't going to work on it. Nope. She said, it's a wrap. Right. There was no, resolving, or there was no resolution in that marriage. Then she got married again, and he cheated as well. But she decided to work on that. And I said, what was the difference between what made you work on that one versus the second one, or the first one, not working on the first one? And she was like, it was all in her partner. And the first one wasn't open to, him learning how to do things better. If she shared like a YouTube video or something, he just didn't want to hear it. So I'm like, well, yeah, in cases like that, what you supposed to do? Beat them over the head with, you got to want to learn how to do better for yourself. Right. If you can't work with somebody who refuses to be open to that.
Exactly. In what ways do you think emotional intimacy differs as we get older?
I think as we get older, we need to rely on it more. Not to say that as the young folks that I think when you're younger, you're building. You're in the building phase, right? We're creating life. Typically, we're having children, and of course, emotional intimacy is very important. But you're in the building phase, just like when you starting a business, right? Your grind in your business is a little different than maintaining your business. I think as we get older, we're not focused as much on the physical, right? Because hey, things start to sag. Like I say, my titties is up here, they down here, and I still don't like to wear bras. They sagging a little bit, and that's okay, right? I got a little bit of gut, yes I do. And that's a menopausal little pouch, okay? That's what I'm gonna say. It is what it is.
It is what
10 years ago, girl, I didn't have this little 2-pack, a 6-pack. Now I got 2-pack, girl. I think the emotional intimacy, because it's important when you're younger, but as we age, y'all, we're going to the doctors more. You're staying overnight for procedures, right? You need somebody on your emergency card, right? It's like I want somebody in my life. I want to have a life partner. Those other things, those building and creating things that, okay, well, what kind of job do you have? What do you want? As we get older, we're going to be spending more and more time with our partners. We are going to be retiring. You're not going to be easily diverted away from attention because the kids are going to be grown. Them kids get out the house, right? It's just me and you. How many couples do you know just split up as soon as the last kid leaves because it was their children holding them together? Now it's just y'all, you're going to have to really get to know this person because they have gone through many transitions from when they were 18, 19, 20, 25 to now they're 50, 55, 60. You're spending a lot more time with this person. So you're going to have that emotional intimacy, the emotional maturity, if you want that relationship to last, because, that perky booty and then not to say that we should absolutely still focus on our physical outer layer, right? But it shouldn't be the prime thing that's holding y'all together because looks do fade.
Right. I 100% agree. So what advice would you give someone re-entering the dating scene after a long-term relationship or even a divorce?
Be patient. If you were married for a long time, ain't nothing wrong with being solo. There's nothing wrong with being solo. I hate, when people say, well, at least she got a man. You see some of these people's men, they accept any old thing just to say they're in a relationship. I'm sorry, it is not better to be in any old thing than it is to be single and loving on yourself. So I would say, y'all take your time. There's no rush. You can have a companion. You remember back in the day when Miss Betty had a special friend. Girl, there's nothing wrong with having a special friend. You don't have to be booed up. Yep. And single women live the longest. They do. Married men live longer than single men. But, and it's like somebody asked me, well, why is that? Because women are taking care of y'all. We're telling y'all to go to the doctor. We're taking y'all to the doctor. We're keeping track of your medical appointments. Y'all, if not, y'all being ramen noodles, with one chopstick. So you got a woman in your life. A woman's natural, just the way we're innately built. We're nurturers. Right. We're caretakers. We're going to love on you. The amount of love my mom pours into my daddy. My daddy is almost 76 years old and it's a black man with diabetes and, high blood pressure because it's a black man. It's common in this country, all the stress that they deal with, right? My mother, when I tell you, she, like I said, she's Chinese. They eat vegetables and breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like my mom is constantly chopping in the kitchen, giving him berries to snack on. My mom pours into my dad. She really takes care of my father. And if he didn't have my mother, like, what would he be eating? Well, what would he be doing? Because my mother makes him get up, go walk, and stuff like that. That's what a woman can bring into a man's life.
Right. And I always ask, and my husband and I have this conversation because I've already told him. I said, if something happened to you, because you're not divorcing me, so if something happened to you, I don't think I would want. I know I wouldn't want to get back into a relationship. One, because I don't feel like retraining somebody. And two, like you said, just starting to really pour into ourselves because we pour into our family so much. But I also, what you also said is how women live longer. Why do you think men, and I've seen this happen a number of times, a man's wife, I'll say passes. So these are married men, they pass. And they are, I wouldn't say quick, but they are looking for the next Mrs. So-and-so or whatever. Why is that? Whereas women be like, well, hubby passed. Guess it's time for me to start traveling. Why do you think that is? Men are quick to want to get back into a relationship.
Girl, they looking for a caretaker. They don't want to do life alone. Men want, they call it, what do they call it, girl? Now, it's a term for it. Nurse wives, right? They looking for that. Like, girl, they quick. I have definitely seen that. Girl, Betty wife died on Tuesday. If you got women stroking these men at the funeral, talking about you can come cry on my shoulder.
Right, I'll bring you home. I'll bring you a casserole over.
Girl, and they be like, okay, because they don't want to do life alone. Women, I don't think we're as scared to do life alone. Women are more quick to, I don't want to take care of nobody else. Like, I just want to take care of myself. I don't want to compromise. I've been compromising my entire life from these children, taking, doing this, doing that. It's a lot of women that never got to live their lives. So, because they always take care of somebody else, so no, girl. A lot of women choose to stay by themselves.
So looking forward, what trends do you see impacting dating and relationships for those of us over 50, 60 and 70? But
yeah, I think let's say that you're out here dating. I think we're going to see more people, and I've said this, people thought I was crazy. I've been saying about 15 years, like, I get married again, I'm okay with living apart. And people thought it was crazy to say that then. But I'm seeing more and more people are okay with that. Yeah. I think, especially if you've been single a minute, I think a lot of people aren't necessarily rushed to get married, but maybe are looking for a companionship, lifelong companionship, just to have a life partner. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to travel with somebody on a regular basis. I don't want to see you every damn day. I don't want you to be in my space every day. I don't want cookie breakfast and dinner and all that other crap, right? But I wouldn't mind seeing you 3 times a week. So how about I stay in my place and you stay in yours? I think we'll see definitely more of that. We are seeing a lot of people are single in their 50s. Yes, it is that number is growing and growing, and it will continue to grow because people aren't staying, they're like, oh, kid's gone. I hated him I never liked his ass anyway and couldn't stand his mama, right? So you're seeing people just say, I don't want this anymore, and I'm going through life without all of that extra stuff. I don't want to take care of somebody. Because if you're in your 50s, you're not old. You're still out here living. Like, people think 50 is old and decrepit. And I'm like, no, we're not. So you still have life to live, and I think we're going to see more and more people just still doing life, but not necessarily in a rush to say I do.
Okay, makes sense. So my last question: what does it mean to you to be unapologetically 50 plus?
I think for me, that means I'm living in my truth. My kids are grown, and like I said, I'm an empty nester. And even though my oldest son is back because he has a house 3 hours away, but he moved back here because I live in the DMV, and so more jobs are out here. But still, I'm not responsible for him. He's almost 30. I think, you bring my grandson here, and he's like, Grandma gone again. She out here. Well, you don't sit at home and babysit. Hell no, no, that's your baby. I'm not that granny. No, this ain't Leave It to Beaver. Okay, the granny. No. You need to sit at home, take care of your kid. I did my due diligence in raising y'all, right? So I feel like we got to honor the life that God has given us. And I played my part. I was a young mom in college. I had my son when I was a junior at college, and I kept him. I was on welfare, WIC, Section 8, and everything. Had mice, roaches, you name it, so that I could graduate college. And I stayed, and I raised him, and I graduated on time in those 4 years. And I went on and, created a career so that I could raise my kids. So I did all that. Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
My turn. So yeah, when you bring my grandbabies over here and grandma ain't here, and I'm jet setting around the world. FaceTime me, like you FaceTime me this morning or yesterday morning with the grandbabies. Right. Thank God for technology. It's my turn now.
Amen. I like that. So, Miss B, thank you so much. I truly enjoy your podcast, your YouTube channel. I enjoyed it. If y'all haven't watched her, watch her. Because she was actually mild today with the coochie and all that. The coochie and all that. She was mild. Check out her channel. I'm like, this had me cracking up. So please check her out. Her information will be in the description below. But thank you guys for joining us. Please remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification. And I will see you again next week. Thank you guys. Bye.